to Comic Book Wars. This is our special Sunday evening broadcast. Today we are lucky to be joined with the one and only ComicdSPECtive. Gary, will you introduce yourself to our audience?
Good evening, Nico. We're putting on our broadcast voices tonight, I can see. So welcome on this Sunday evening. I am Gary Nusser, the ComicdSPECtive. It was the best I could come up with on short notice, but it seems to have stuck for now. And the only problem is I think we're going to miss, I just realized it's Sunday night, so we're going to have our core audience is going to be watching Watchmen and Rick and Morty's premiering tonight, right? So we've lost 90%
I
of
think the Watchmen starts at 9, and I don't think Rick and Morty starts until about 11:30.
We're a perfect lead-in then for both of that, because they'll need to wash this out of their mouth with some real humor afterwards, Nico, probably, from what we're going to bring tonight, right?
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm pretty excited. It's an adults-only crowd. So I want to apologize ahead of time for my ill manners and profanity. Gary, again, it is great to be with you. Yeah. So for those who are unfamiliar, you were a fixture on the Google Hangouts and the early days of the CBSI website. Is that fair to say?
Within limits. I think I came, actually, believe it or not, I think I came in the tail end of the CBSI, sort of the heyday. I came in sort of right around, I guess, the last maybe 3 or 4 years of when it was really hitting through. But I'd been collecting before that. But that was when I sort of got involved in. So maybe last 5 years, 3 to 5 years.
Okay, and were you on the CGC boards back in the day?
I wasn't, though. Apparently, it's been rumored that I've been on there with a rumored alias. But when I tell you that I'm very sort of transparent, like my Twitter connects to my eBay, connects to my MeWe page, connects to G+. I try to be very transparent. I don't do this, if you look at my eBay page, not to make money, obviously. Yeah. I'm spending a lot of money, not making money. But I do put, I put books up and I just sort of leave them there. But I love more to find books, to talk about books. Number one, to read books, right? Like I gravitate towards podcasts and sites where people are reading the books. Like you fall in love with like the shiny covers, but then you stay for like the stories and the characters, and you stay for the people who actually read the books and that know what's going on in the industry, if that's what you want to call speculation. But I'm a collector first, and I know some people say that, but I've been collecting since, I think, I would say 84. I think March 84 is probably when Uncanny X-Men 179 came out. That was my first book I ever bought off Ozone Park comic shop that's no longer there. And then 2 months later, Secret Wars came onto the shelves, and I was hooked from that point. So that was, imagine coming on as an 11-year-old kid and finding those 2 books, Kitty Pryde in her wedding dress on the cover. So there's your first crush as an 11-year-old. And then 2, Secret Wars, which is, every fanboy's like dream from,
So Kitty Pryde did it for you. Most guys tell me that it was Death, but you were in there a little bit earlier.
I was early. Yeah. So I was, Kitty Pryde, right around those covers. And then I went back and of course bought that famous cover. They were going to actually, I think that movie was just announced to be scrapped, right? They were going to do the Kitty Pryde movie where she's alone in the mansion, right? And she defeats the I don't think it was the Brood. I think it was the demons that came through. So I bought that cover with her on there. I was a big Kitty Pryde fan. I think I still have a couple of statues around the house that my wife, surreptitiously hides, like the lamp from the Christmas Story.
Nice. So for those who are new to comics, can you talk a little bit about Kitty Pryde as kind of a fixture in Marvel Comics, how she was linked up with Wolverine back in the day, and really was kind of like, to some extent, the heir apparent as like the matriarch of the Marvel universe with her relationship with Wolverine, right?
Yeah, it was really interesting. She was sort of a joint creation between Claremont and John Byrne, right? They sort of they designed what this character would ultimately look like down the line. I really saw her, I saw her around the John Romita Jr. time, but then when I went back and tracked her, Uncanny X-Men 129, first issue, also a really important issue because White Queen. So to me, that's a major key, right? Like, especially now we're looking where the X-Men are right now. So you're introducing this teenage sort of a point of view character to the X-Men. She was, but she was also, you know, she was not only a mutant, she was like a Jewish mutant, right? So they were all very big on introducing these issues at the time and making it, you know, blatantly apparent, like mutants, like.
Well, it was a different world.
Yeah,
you would agree.
Totally, and I think it was a gateway character for a lot of people. Claremont used her as a mouthpiece a lot, and she really was. She had two close relationships, right? Actually, if you count Colossus, I guess three. But Wolverine, Logan, always very tight with her. He was very protective, and then later down the line, Storm, Aurora, which was a great relationship. And I think it was those kind of stories in those books at that time. It was very like they were playing softball for half an issue, right? Like who would, I don't think you could sell that book today. And I think they tried to do that. And I think Hickman realized as he started to reinvent the X-Men, you can't go home again with that concept anymore. We're in a different time now. So you need to take a different approach. And I think that was the problem with the X-Men. They kept trying to capture what Claremont had done. Even Claremont couldn't capture it again. Like every time he's come back, you know, I think his last great stuff was probably Excalibur, right? But we'll talk about that in a little while. So going back to Kitty, all of a sudden now she's linked. She's with this Wolverine character. They had that really cool Wolverine and Kitty Pryde series, right? Remember with Ogun, the Master, and really she was trained to be a ninja at that point. So you made this character who could phase in and out of things. Now she's a ninja. She
Shadow Cat.
Eventually they're going to give her claws, right? There's they did that even in a couple of those, like when he came back, X-Men Forever. I remember a really horrible cover. This kitty's got claw, and it's like one claw popping out, and that was Claremont like trying to capture that again. And then she fell sort of out for a while until Who Should Bring Her Back by Joss Whedon, right? And Astonishing X-Men, and then he loved that character too because he fell in love with that character about the same time that anyone who was reading the X-Men in that late 70s, early 80s, I guess, really came to sort of identify and crush on a character that was in a comic because, you know, unless you were like reading comics on the side, if comics were your main sort of interest, probably your main crush was coming out of a comic initially for some of the comic sort that got.
No question about it.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet. Yeah. So, I mean, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. I think that those are teaching points and super interesting. And they're certainly what drives, at least for me, and I think you as well, speculation generally is love for these characters that were once great, once beloved, and a belief that they will be if handled appropriately sometime in the future. So can we talk a little bit about what you're doing? What is the ComicdSPECtive website? Kind of the history of how that evolved and how that developed?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to, I guess it tracks back to what you said about G+. So I was on G+ for a while. I was just sort of learning the ropes, right? Like hanging back a little like most people do, seeing what's going on in the group. Then getting really interested. Like I think the first thing that sort of drew me in were like finding these covers. Like I was finding patterns in covers on and saying, looking far ahead of previews, looking at solicits and saying, wow, you can start to see which of the books that are going to sort of jump. And that was right around the time. And again, on that, I don't think anyone claims sole credit for spec. I don't think, you know, and some people are like, oh, well, whatever, you're claiming sole credit. But it's always popping up somewhere else. It just depends whether or not you're reading that site, right? So I can't read everything. You can't read everything. So if someone else writes about it somewhere else, that's them having an original thought, like I'm having an original thought. So I think Popeye.
We give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, exactly. So like Popeye 65, which I know Sean Big Leg was collecting those Popeyes, and I think he got pissed off at the time when I sort of had seen that Popeye 65 pop up on a website. And if you remember that, that's a zombie cover.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I bought a cover price copy off Things from Another World, right?
Nice.
And I put this cover and I said, guys, this is a cover that it's like Popeye pulling his own guts out of himself. It was like really just grotesque. And they had done this series of variants that some people knew about, and it just seemed to pop. And I think I ended up selling it raw for like $265, right? And then it was subsequently slabbed, and I think it went for like $600 after that. So I really, all of a sudden, I call it like the slot machine, right? So you put the coins in, you pull the slots, and now and then you're going to line them up. And that's what I was finding with covers, right? I was finding these covers that were going to sort of pop. Life of Captain Marvel 3, the Joe Quesada cover. And I think I have a couple of them I don't know if you're gonna be able to see off my thing here tonight, Nico, but yeah, like that, like, so that cover, right? Like,
Beautiful.
So that was a Virgin Joe Quesada variant that I had seen a while back. I'd seen him posted on social media, and I'll talk a little bit about how I use that and what I do. But seeing that, I said, guys, this is a cover you want to seek out. This is number one. It's going to be a Ghost. It's a 5-issue series. I think it's the 3rd issue in this series. It's a high ratio variant. And this ended
up 1 in 200 or a 1 in 100?
1 in 100. This was,
okay.
Yeah. So it just ended up popping. You could see just the black star cover. Just sort of, you knew it was going to be tough to find a good copy of. And so I started seeing, I started looking, and I found another Joe Quesada cover. There's one like back there, that Star Wars Age of Resistance Ray up in the top corner. That's one that I had seen Joe Quesada talk about again, like 2 years ago. And what I do is every time I see something that pops up on social media or pops up on a website, I just screenshot it, right? And I make folders, and I do independents, I do options, I do variant covers, and I make all separate folders on my photos. So when I'm going through here, like for tonight's podcast, I put on a bunch of different, covers, things I've been looking at. And from there, I started to say, well, this is interesting, right? Like, so covers are great, but you're never always going to have, those aren't always going to pop. I'm going to end up with short boxes of things that don't pop. Because if I'm hitting 1 out of every 10, that's great. But that means 9 out of 10 I'm sitting on inventory and stock. So then I started to say, well, what else am I sitting on? And what I really know is comics, because I've been reading Marvel and DC pretty consistently from the 80s on and off. I took a break in college. Then I traveled a little, took a break, got married, had kids, took a break on and off. But I always found a way to sort of circulate back and get back to reading again. And I think I'm constantly reading maybe like 12 to 20 titles a month maybe. And then
when you said 12, I was like, oh, well, maybe Gary doesn't read as many as I thought. I've had times where I was reading up to 12 titles a month, and then we jumped to the 20 number, and I'm like, yeah, no, you smashed my skull.
It's
serious.
But you know what? And the reason I do that is
strong, dude.
Yeah,
I admire it.
And you know what? I say if I read a book, like I'm an avid reader, and that's something I always need to have something in front of me to read, to do something. My wife and I are both we come from English teacher backgrounds, and we always have books around our kids. So to me, reading is natural anyway. So then I'm like, all right, I'm reading. Now, all of a sudden, I found this CBSI site, this G+ site. People are making money off of talking about, oh, this character appeared in this book. And I'm like, well, I know where that character came from, or, oh, I remember that story, or I remember that plot where that came from.
You weren't selling any books at all, ever?
No, not until, like I said, really.
What year was this?
Probably about 5 years ago. If you look, like I was selling stuff on eBay, but I was selling like Criterion DVDs. I was selling like action figures. I was big into G.I. Joe action figures, which I've sold all of my like toy stock, unless it's really personal to me. Like my initial stuff that I bought, that's what I was selling. I was selling cards. I was selling a lot of cards. And so I'm someone who's, if you're a collector, if you have that sort of in your blood, you jump between things. But for me, it's like that first love is always,
Amen.
That's always what I'm going to go back to. And
what year do you think I purchased my first table at a comic show?
I feel like you've been doing it a while, though, haven't you?
Yeah. Just guess. Guess what year.
I would say, how old are you?
I turned 40 this month.
So you turned 40 this month, 15 years ago.
In 1992.
92. All right. Wow.
Yeah. I realized just how ridiculous that was.
Wow.
Recently, when I got back into comics about a little less than a year and a half ago, it's hard for me to gauge that exactly, but suffice to say, about 6 months later, when I kind of had, sort of an inkling of what was going on, I went and I found the money box that I used to use at shows, and I kept my receipt for my first table underneath of the thing, and it was 1992, and I was like, oh Lord.
That's like a piece of history, right? It's like
yeah. Well, I parlayed that into a table from the same guy who's still doing tables. He's always sold out, and I was like, look, dude, I bought my first table from you in 1992. Hook a brother up. That's like, I don't remember you, but okay. I was like, well, I was a child then.
I'll take your word on it.
I was a child. I sent him a picture of it. He's like, "That's strange. Did I have hair back then?" I was like, "No, you're still bald."
Yeah, sorry.
But anyway, so that's how that transpired. So you, in other words, you transition from an avid reader, a voracious reader, to someone who is offering insights and suggestions, or at least some information on G Plus. And then help me out. So is CBSI already up and running at this point, or?
So no, so they were not up and running. They were about to get up and run. I think they were close to moving, like knowing what was going to be happening. And if it was up and running, like again, I was solely on that G Plus group. I know there
were kind of tangentially involved.
Yeah, exactly. And there are other people I know in that group who then spread out and were starting their own groups going on. And I just started to find there was a lot of drama.
We'll do an interview with somebody who will get me some history of this, because thankfully I wasn't there for any of it. I'm a little bit upset about that, right? Like I feel like I missed out on a lot. Certainly I missed out on a lot of cash, because the bubble had bubble time as far as the market goes, at least in my opinion. I think the bubble is over. But anyway, I'm happy to have not been party to any of the drama or any of the like splintering, because at least I get to be members of which is neat.
Yeah, and Nico, I think you're bouncing. You're bouncing a little. I don't know if your audio and video is bouncing a little on my end. I don't know if anyone else is seeing it, but I don't know if I'm bouncing on you. But a little in and out. I'm hearing you, but you're not always syncing up. Just so you're aware of that. So yeah, and hopefully people can hear me. And if not, we'll just be in a void. So at that time on G Plus, the drama seemed to be outweighing the sort of viability of this being a productive way for me to spend my time. People were saying like I was thrown out of like the G Plus site. I was like, which was kind of funny, like to be thrown out of a Google Plus site. But I just said, you know what, I'm going to go off and I'm going to try to like just go onto this. It was dying out. I made a G Plus site of my own, and you look frozen or really focused, Nico. Now you're back.
I'm good to go.
Yeah, I got you totally back. Yeah. I think you're still synced up. But anyway, I had my own G Plus site of the ComicdSPECtive, and then when G Plus died, I went to MeWe, and we all know MeWe is sort of like a train wreck of a social network, but that's where I'm back again. I went back on MeWe just because, in terms of what I'm doing, my information is dead if I let it sort of sit. I can't do a weekly site. I can't do an article every week. I don't have the time also to sit down. So I like short bursts. I like popping out a post. Here's a picture. Here's a cover. Here's something I see coming up. Right. Here's like let's just say so when this was coming out, right? Like a basket full of heads. Right, you can see. So this was coming out.
Is that the B cover?
So this is the I think this is the A. No, this is the A cover for but before that, right? Like the sampler had come out, right? And I had seen. I'm like, okay, yeah. And the sampler has like 4 stories of everything in it, right? And some people don't really believe in samplers, but these are the kind of things that I had seen. Like, I'm like, you can grab this from your comic shop today. If I wait a week to write about this, you're not going to have this to grab, right? So I'm trying to find things to get out to people. I will tell you, I used to make the big mistake of buying into all of my spec, right? Like I have a big inventory, and I'm constantly pulling books out, and I'm finding things. But a lot of times, older books especially, like I have some gaps in my collection. I had somewhere down the line something shady happened where in some sort of familial divorce, long boxes disappeared from my house or my father's house, like a good 5 to 6 long boxes, including substantial gaps in my Uncanny X-Men collection, which I had from pretty much 100 up. So I lost big gaps, and so I started to fill those back in a lot, and I started to find that I was buying like too much. Like everything I talked about, I was buying, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have a lot of these books. If I search through, so I just took months and got myself sort of organized in between G Plus, and I set up everything Marvel, DC, and then I said, okay, let me start reading these online. Like I started reading. I'm not going to go back and read these books. If you look at like this is the first book I bought. If you look, like I was a kid who read books like carefully back then, right? Like you can see the no corner creases. Like my Uncanny X-Men are my most read books at the time, but I read them really carefully, and I don't even know why. And again, it was maybe because I was collecting, like I was into baseball cards, and those I had ruined, like, you know, flipping cards and stuff at the time. I'm like, well, maybe this would be worth something. I used to keep my toys like sort of really neat. I mean, it's probably OCD, right? Don't we all have a little collectors have OCD on some level?
There's no question about it.
Yeah, but anyway, I then decided that this ComicdSPECtive persona was sort of like saying, okay, if I'm going to really make money now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to the future and then find out where in the past I can sort of pull books either from dollar bins or from my own stock that I have already. So looking at and saying, oh, wait a minute, there, that character who's popping up in, let's see over here. Okay, here's one. And I've spoken about this a lot. We know that Brian Michael Bendis is about to have an Amethyst series, right? Like she's going to have a solo thing. Amy Reeder, I think, is writing and drawing it. So these books were super cheap. This is her first appearance. Gem World, right? Amethyst. She's popped up in Young Justice over here. This is about to be a solo series. There are going to be people who are looking for this book. And I already had 2 copies. I just went out and bought I bought a newsstand, right? Because I'm like, oh, let's buy a newsstand of that. And again, no one is chasing Amethyst spec, but I know when, you know, Amy Reeder has a following. People, you know, people like her art. So this is a book that, okay, I'm going to put on the side, and I have a whole box of characters, and I do my boxes alphabetically. So she'll be like right in the front, like Amethyst, boom, and then I'll have all my characters set up, not by companies, but straight alphabetical Marvel DC characters is how I do my book. So when someone is popping out of a solicit, I go to my F and I pull out and say, okay, I have 3 copies of that. I have 4 copies of that. Or if it's someone that's a loser character, like Mondo, right? Mondo is Mondo's going to be a big deal in Hickman's X-Men series. We've seen New Mutants that he can connect to Krakoa. Krakoa is a big part of what's going on. He's spoken about this character. He's spoken about Black Tom. All these characters connected to the Earth or connected to the planet are going to be big deals. So I bought $1.50 copies of that Generation X, even though that's a weird one because Mondo is a clone and then is revealed. But anyway, those are what people should always be buying. Read solicits. Don't wait for Nick to give you a key collector like buzz, because you're not the only one getting that. Everyone is getting that. You're listing your books. If you're buying your books at that point, it's too late. So I'm looking in January. I'm looking to see what's happening in January in the Marvel and DC books. I'm like, what's happening in Ghost Rider? What's happening in Avengers? I'm looking at all those clues that Hickman and Donny Cates and Jason Aaron are dropping in the Avengers, and because they're always planting the seeds for what's going to come. And if you know your books, if you know what's going on, you know where those stories are going to be. People are going to know where they're going, right? Don't know where they've been, know where they're going ahead. And that's a ComicdSPECtive thing. And I've been writing longer pieces on that. I wrote a little bit about this book, right? This is a big book because, and if you can see it, I'm gonna see if I turn up this light. Yeah, let's see if it gets a little closer. So this is Captain Britain number 8. This again is your first Betsy Braddock, right? And this is a 9.2.
That's a beauty.
So I got this because
the book's a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah, let me tell you. And then
newsstand, right? It doesn't press well, doesn't clean well, and it gets all fucked up all the time. Yeah,
this was the highest grade I was willing to buy in at the price where I knew where I was. But if I was buying it now, there was no way I'd be able to get that same book, because now she's back on the radar, right? She's the new Captain Britain.
What's the 9.2 run for now?
That's a great question. I was just looking for well, you know what? We have the internet here. Why don't we, while we're talking, check it out? But that, and then of course there's the cover with her, right? Like on the series as Captain Britain popping out, right? That beautiful white cover as well. What is that? Captain Britain 10 maybe, or 13. I'll have to look that one up. But those are the kind of things that we always need to be looking at. And if you can afford to buy one of those books, instead of, if you're going to spend $100 in on a 100 to 1 ratio book, which some people do because I see them paying those prices on eBay, why wouldn't you just wait to not buy 2 of those books and then buy a beautiful book like that? Like to me, that's where we need to go. Not to say you shouldn't buy high ratio variants, but don't buy the same ones that everyone is chasing. All right, and that's the problem. Everyone's chasing the same books out there.
Well, if you got $600, you can buy a 9.6.
So
there's and for the record, people are dropping their raw copies of that book now, which is kind of shocking. I think. And do you want to talk a little bit about this kind of like what I like to describe as the waves of the comic book market, right? Where because what we talk about is really like getting in when the market is nice and still, and so that when it erupts, you can literally, if you want, sell it the first peak, or hold through if you think there's going to be a bigger peak, or sell and buy back in and sell again. But the last thing that any of us would ever suggest to anybody, whether they're an experienced collector or a new collector, is to buy at these peaks. And I give the suggestions that I need to hear. My friends who I talk about comics with and what I want to buy are like, you tell everybody in your weekend update not to buy hot shit. And then all you do is talk to me about how you want the hottest book on the market in the highest grade. Yeah. But it's really the wins that I make elsewhere that allow me to kind of like suffer there and do that occasionally. But you can't do it all the time, or you have no wins at all.
So to me, that's more the for a lot, I think that's the independent market, right? I think that's where we're seeing a lot of people who are, things are being optioned so quickly now, right? And and for now, I'm going to put Disney Plus aside, because that is, that's exciting news in a lot of ways. And I'm not the only one. Other people are talking about trends over there, what's happening Disney Plus, but things we've expected. But in these independent books where every day you're turning around, like I just pulled my Vagrant Queen books back out again, because that's going to be a sci-fi show, and I just saw the lead actress say show's a wrap or ready to go. So they're about to drop trailers on that, right? So as soon as
where's October Faction, Warrior Nun, these are things that have been cast, that have been presumably filmed, haven't come out yet.
Right.
And what's weird is that, like, while these sci-fi shows haven't gone crazy after they've been released, a lot of the Netflix shows have.
Yes.
Even The Watchmen. I think we're seeing just the groundswell of interest in those characters. I'm excited for tonight's episode. Yeah. Similarly, we saw it with Umbrella Academy and The Boys.
Here's one. So here's Daybreak, right? So this. Perfect. So this one's really funny. I guess about maybe 2 years ago, I heard about this getting optioned. I would say close to it. I wrote about it on G Plus at the time. Last week, I'm sitting around the house. It's like a rainy day. I'm like, what's recommended for me? And of course, teenage, adolescent, apocalyptic comedies. So that's my wheelhouse.
Nice.
And then Daybreak pops up there. I start watching, and I'm watching, and then I get to the 6th episode, and I'm like, Daybreak, wait a minute, is this the Netflix show that was all about? And if you've read this book, the book is nothing at all like this. They actually did a really smart thing. Instead of doing what The Walking Dead did and faithfully adapting something, they made something that taps into a market. And from what I see, it's trending. It's a popular thing. The last set of this, I think a set of this just went for like $110, $120 on auction recently. And this is a first print Bodega Comics. So it's oversized. You can see on the back. I picked it up from my comic shop for, I think, $15 maybe nice. At the time. And again, it was a tough book to find, but they went totally up the source. This is a first person point of view, like kind of bleak, dark in some ways, post-apocalyptic tale. They've turned it into like a video game hyperkinetic comedy that really works. And that's what I think sometimes you have to do with like these independent series. Don't try to follow it so faithfully that you're going to piss off people. Make it so different that they don't even realize what the source material was, right? And then the people who are like sitting on those books, then you can sell those. So in fact, I didn't even list this. See, that's how behind the times I am, Nico, right? This should be up already. So that's the kind of thing I think you're following the trends, right? Like if you miss out on the initial wave, don't panic. Right, like that's a Hitchhiker's Guide. Like, don't panic. Don't throw all your money at a book that everyone's chasing, unless unless you know somewhere where you can get it, right? Like there are people out there who know how to get, like, a Google search doesn't bring up every comic book shop, right? Like online comic book shop. It doesn't bring up, like, you know, to walk down your block and you may know what they have in their stock. You may know, wow, when that Archie thing happened, I knew that my comic shop had tons of Archie. So I just started pulling out all the bathing suit covers, right? And I'm like, nobody was looking after that because it wasn't something that was on the radar, and no one even realized it at the time that, oh, wait a minute, I just saw an Archie bikini cover go. So I bet all the covers will start going, that's a pattern, that's a trend. People they don't follow patterns, trends. What they follow is the flavor of the week. And they follow, here were the books that were listed on a site that what's going to come out tomorrow. I'm going to buy those books. Now they pop up on the top 10 list, whatever top 10 list the next week. Oh, I'm going to sell those books. Now what's next week? Boom. And it's just sort of back and forth. I can't do that. I don't want to do that. When I'm buying books now, if I'm going to spend good money, if I'm going to buy this, I'm buying this because I'm getting it at a lower ratio cost, right? And it's because I love Excalibur. That was one of my favorite. That Alan Davis Claremont run. This is going, like, I'm not going to do anything with this. This is staying in my collection, and that's going to go with my first issues of Excalibur, because again, that to me that's a passion for me, right? Like I want to have certain things. Like it doesn't matter to me. Eventually I may sell it down the line. College is going to come. My kids are going to be at that age, and I'll be like, all right, maybe I do need to sell that, but only if I get what I think it's worth to me emotionally to give up, right? Not necessarily financially.
What I've been snagging is the oversized Excalibur special.
Yeah, that
the first appearance of their team.
Yeah, that one right there, right?
I pull those suckers out of dollar bins and $2 bins, and you know what I mean, like $3 bins all day.
Yeah, this was $3. If you look, it's signed by like Alan Davis, right? So it's like, right. Yeah, but I think these must have been like crazily overprinted. Like it's tough to get numbers on a lot of those books before.
Well, those are 9/8 sell for big money.
I'm sure, because you know what, those spines are really on this one. If you look, they're really unforgiving. Like they get that white split across the middle, and again, not a book. I think I probably have about 5 of those, right? Like sitting around, and I know I have that book.
I just grab them.
Yeah, that's it. And again, there's no major first appearance in there. I mean, it's first appearance of a team. To me, that's always a very debatable thing too. Like who's buying first appearance of teams? Though I guess Thunderbolts, I guess people are, that's a thing.
Oh Lord.
But
that's a big book all of a sudden. Who'd have guessed? I think 9/8s are back up to like $350.
And that's the other thing I'm starting to look at a lot, and that's what I'm thinking about, because we're seeing so many different incarnations of different teams and different characters, right? So Thunderbolts has been reinvented numerous times.
And when we were talking about that, we were talking about, of course, their first appearance in The Incredible Hulk. But I'm glad that you talked about that, because it's increasingly interesting to me whether or not they go with a different iteration entirely. We've heard about at least rumors or whispers about the Thunderbolts for a long time now, and the most recent ones have been contemporaneous with the discussion about, well, the Punisher's coming back, and it just kind of it's interesting for me. I certainly don't have any hard or fast opinions about that, but I think it's important to be prepared.
Yeah, just like the She-Hulk, right? It got a showrunner, and all of a sudden, what did she come out and say? That, and this is something I had put up, when that She-Hulk news came out, I'm like, don't necessarily go chase first appearance of She-Hulk, which is a great, so, that's the obvious play, right? Like everyone's going to go first appearance of She-Hulk. Well, go for one of her different sort of things. Go for what Dan Slott was doing. Buy those books. Buy the Charles Soule run, which apparently she really liked. The showrunner really loved that run. Specifically mentioned the character who's appearing in issue 2. First appeared in issue 2. The Asian secretary, I think she is, or paralegal, she may be in there as well. So those are dollar books that back when I first heard She-Hulk, like even Moon Knight, right? I'm like, buy the Jeff Lemire run, right? Buy the Warren Ellis run of Moon Knight. Don't go and buy, you're not going to get that Werewolf by Night. You're competing in a different kind of crowd. So unless you're running with that kind of crowd, know your tax bracket, right? So,
well, and you had to be in early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly
like,
right. Yeah.
like I wanted one of those books, knew that it was going to happen, was quite confident about, the tip that I got. Still couldn't buy one at a price point that made any sense, at least not at the high end. Got a very low grade copy that I sold before the news, I think at an inflated price, like a way inflated price over what I would have been able to sell it for after the news when all of the legit copies came out, just because people were clamoring to get any copy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the non-traditional kind of comic book jujitsu is really what pays dividends.
Yeah. And that's where, again, you have to be willing, though. You have to be willing to be patient. And that's what I don't think a lot of people have. Like this week.
If we can stay on that. Yeah, that's a good point. Because if we can stay on Werewolves by Night 32.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It didn't take long before the upper mid-grade copies, the price fell out. Yeah. I can't remember what it was. And I'll screw this up. So I don't, but like, if a CGC 8.5 or 7.5 was selling for like at its peak following the news 12 or 1400, there was a copy that went for like $800, which was lower than it had sold for, or at least at what it had sold for months before the news. Mm-hmm. And that took literally a matter of a few weeks. If you were patient, you could have got that copy.
Yeah.
And the only reason I knew about it, not that I was a buyer, my friend was a seller who was like, son of a bitch, I missed my chance.
But that's exactly it. And it's I think also we're in a generation of short attention spans, and all of a sudden everyone's clamoring after that book until they're not clamoring after that book, right? Like we went from, if you remember, we had that crazy, like I think it was like 2 months where people went from Immortal Hulk to Naomi to Die, to which I think is still Die. I think is still a book that's very much like I would be buying 9.8s of issues 1 of Die, because to me that's a book that's definitely you're going to see popping up, and I think it's cheap now. But people's short attention spans are so short that you can just hang on and say, that's a book I want. Just keep it in the back of my head, and I don't need to have that book. Nothing's going to happen with that book in the next year. Nothing's happening with that book in the next year and a half. People in 6 months, it's going to be out of sight. I'm going to be able to get that book, maybe not at a discount, but at a premium for sure. Like at a major premium, maybe, to me, 20% of a premium of what you're going to pay for a high priced, a high yield book, you're going to make that money back double when that book comes back on the radar in a big way, right? When it comes back again.
Yeah, I'll go back and do that with indies all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Particularly image books. It makes me so happy. I can go back and get, Peter Panzerfaust first issues for like $20. Or
Chew. Look at Chew, like back again, a book that, who knew, like Bob Layman's books are interesting. Chew, Farmhand, right? Like those are books that
I passed on a Farmhand today at $15 because it wasn't nice enough.
Yeah, I would
right. But if it was a 9.8 candidate, I'd have paid in a heartbeat, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? It was probably a 9.2, maybe a 9.4, 9.6 with a lot of love and a little bit of luck in a press.
Yeah,
but it was not a 9.8. And I think we can do that time and time again with those indies. And, what I've been talking about a little bit in the weekend update is going back to those kind of classic series that people don't pay attention to anymore. So there are some that get, legitimate attention, like the Primer 2s, but others that nobody cares about. The Mouse Guard, the Macros 1, the Love and Rockets, that are big books, either, for different reasons. Some because they're revolutionary, others just have a place that was near and dear to us in our childhood or early adolescent or teenage years, depending on how old we are. But, I like going back and picking those up. I think we're in a market now where everything is going to get optioned or made that was classic and a big deal. And it's really just kind of like, can I hold on and make some shrewd purchases and then sort of move stuff when the time comes. And my hope is always to do enough of that I can then purchase the big books that I would never be able to purchase otherwise.
Right. And again, it's just knowing when, like, how to read those cycles, right? Like when those cycles going to happen. Like Mouse Guard was a perfect example. I'm a big Mouse Guard fan. I have everything except the original first print that was out, which is like, that's one of the all-time grails. But I do have several of the first prints, and they're better to get actually. He signed a lot of those books, so those books are tough to find unsigned. Without David Peterson's signatures. It was going to be a movie. Then Disney deemed it too expensive. They actually had the reel out there, right? So it's an oversized book. It's really tough to find in great condition. And now Disney Plus is back in a viable market. And now I just read an article in the Times today, right? And they're talking about Disney's first. They're going to bring back all of the layer of the movies they did back in the 70s and 80s, like Old Yeller type movies, because now they can do it economically feasibly. Like they can make a $40 million movie, release it on streaming, where they would never be profitable to do in a theater. So now maybe Mouse Guard goes back on the radar again for Disney as a series, right? So there's
pretty sweet.
Yeah. So I'm always trying to think towards those ways, right? Like
well, we've seen Goon pop up again and again, right? Like we remember when the Paul Giamatti short happened, and then it was off everyone's radar, and then all of a sudden, boom, out of nowhere, there's a little bit of news,
and it becomes. But you know what's funny?
It's not out anybody's radar right now.
Yeah,
no one cares.
That news pops up, and then you're like, well, where is the other source of that news? And I've written about that on the blog a lot, about legitimate sources, which is always important.
It's heart-wrenching, dude. It's heart-wrenching to try to kind of discern that for yourself, and it's so difficult now because all it takes is a little fringy tip to someplace, and I mean, come on, hard news is half the time bullshit.
Yeah.
When we're talking about entertainment news,
of course. Yeah.
So there's so much manipulation going on, and I hate to be skeptical about that. But I think it's important to be cognizant of the risk and to really kind of operate outside of it and above it.
And I think it's also difficult when you have the creators are playing the game too, right? On social media, like everyone always talks about Donny Cates saying, well, you that's going to be the issue to go after or look for that. So now when you have creators and you have these possibly legitimate comic sources, like Donny Cates used to work with Rich Johnson, right, at Bleeding Cool, because a couple times I called out Bleeding Cool on stuff, and Donny Cates like, oh no, Rich is cool, blah blah blah. So, so many Donny Cates headlines pop up on Bleeding Cool and back and forth. So, yeah, you never want to call it a manipulation of the market, but in many ways, it's them playing a game because everyone wants a piece of that pie. And
should we call it fluffing?
Yeah, that's what it is. I think I just watched a movie recently where some guy was like, "Oh yeah, I'll be the fluffer," and someone's like, that's only in porn movies, right? He's like, "Oh no, I didn't know that. I thought it was just to get everybody ready for a movie." But yeah,
where's Blind Adam?
Where's Blind Adam? He's the Urban Dictionary of
my buddy.
Terms we'll need tonight. But I think it's important, and I've pulled stuff off where I've seen on these sites, and I've gone to these social, to the Twitter account of the creators. Like Al Ewing is great for responding. Dan Slott will respond to things, and I'm like, wait, is this true? And they're like, no, absolutely not. Like Al Ewing's like, no. People were saying Immortal Hulk was going to end its run. Well, so what happened to that? Right, everyone was swearing issue 25 was the end of that Immortal Hulk run. Right, it was a fake solicits put out there. They were going this way, and people.
Yeah, while it's hard to get, Angelina Jolie to respond to your tweet. I've been sending her tweets for a long time. She won't reply. Al Ewing is not that big of a celebrity.
Yeah. To go to isn't Jimmy the celebrity connection? Can he get her to reach out?
Jimmy could probably get me an autograph and maybe, what I mean, like a little QT, but I've not brokered or broached that subject with him, trying to get him to broker that deal for me. I'm still trying to do it on my own.
I bet you could get at least a restraining order, Nico, if you tried hard enough. But
that's an idea. But I think what you're saying is important, and I want to be real clear about this. So what you do is on both Twitter and Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
you're following or at least keeping tabs on the movers and shakers within the community.
Yeah.
I think I want to say, I'm trying to think here. There's one other person other than myself that follows Damon Lindelof, the guy that wrote The Watchmen on Instagram, and it might be you. It might be like,
that's really funny.
It was like you and your one friend, like this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you really need to do that, right? Like, at least I need to do that to kind of like stay up to date on what's going on. And as you indicated, a lot of times these guys are really responsive and at least willing to kind of clarify things. That doesn't necessarily mean that their take on a first appearance is necessarily accurate or not.
Right.
But
yeah,
you can certainly dispel some BS.
Yeah, and look, let's all be clear. They're on there because they're selling books. This is their trade, right? They're not doing it because they're like, oh wow, Al Ewing and I, we have a great friendship because we've spoken online, which some people take everything they take as like, you have to curate your sources. And I always say, like, you curate down the line and eventually you take the things out that are bullshit or have proven not to be true. And you you have a curated feed that comes directly. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I can screenshot. Here's a cover from Sorrentino. Here's what's happening in Immortal Hulk. Here's what's happening here. And you get all these sort of like, here's Stephanie Hans. She's great. She's always throwing things out there. Kieran Gillen. Just watching things that are coming out. You hear about books sometimes, like I saw that cover, that Adam Hughes Sabrina cover, right? Like that was supposed to be a cover 4 years ago. And I wrote about it on G+. I'm like, here's a cover that Adam Hughes had done. Then that series never came to fruition. It just sat. And then all of a sudden they announced Sabrina and Adam Hughes. And I'm like, they didn't show the cover art. I'm like, well, duh. They had an Adam Hughes cover art sitting in the bank that's never been released. It's going to be that. So when all of a sudden those Stadium Comics, I think, right, because they do all the Archie variants.
Oh yeah,
they released that.
Variant,
$20 variants, and they went like that. But you knew if you just did the math, right, it was going to work out. And I didn't. And again, I'm never going to say like, oh, well, I'm so like benevolent. I just posted out like the the Gandhi of comic speculation. I buy stuff that I talk about, and I'll look first and say, okay, oh, let me see that certain site. Let me see if I can clear the near mint plus copies out.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
You say you buy the stuff that you talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I often talk about, I give the suggestions that I need to hear. Right, like the advice that I give on the Comic Book Wars podcast, on the Weekend Update, they're the sentiments, the principles, the books that I'm looking for, the things that I'm interested in. I may not have already secured the copies. I may be hunting for these books, but it's very much like, this is the direction I'm going. And, people are welcome to go along if they want. You did the same thing with another, I think it was a Quesada Ray cover for the Star Wars book. It's comparable book, same situation. It was you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this was and again, let's see if this lamp works well. Yeah, let's look a little better. So this was a cover that had been solicited. Joe Quesada had done, of course, that great Force Awakens cover featuring Rey sitting out with BB-8 looking up out at the stars. There was a color variant, right, a 1/100, and there was a 1/200 black and white sketch variant that became a virtual ghost. So at the same time, he had done this sketch for his daughter. There was supposed to be twin sketches of Rey, and it was supposed to be for an issue of a book that never came out. So again, this was art that was maybe 18 months, 2 years old. They announced Age of Resistance Rey. They didn't show the cover. It was a 1/50, I think. I'm pretty sure 1/50. I was hoping it was going to be a Virgin cover, but anyway, I saw it was Quesada variant Rey. I put 2 and 2 together. I put an order in on DCBS, and I ended up getting it for 2 copies, selling one for triple what it cost. And to me, that's always, if I'm going to want a copy for my collection and I think it's going to pop, I'll buy 2 copies, sell to make my money back, and then I'll just be really happy to hold on to this because I feel like I didn't lose anything. And, I always pride myself. One thing I say in my listings is that my copies, I don't sell a book unless I would want it in my collection. And and I have never, and this is, people don't believe this, but I've never had a book pressed. I've never pressed a book, and most of my books that I've had come back have come back as 9.8s. And that's just, I go to a great shop that is really careful with the books, and also I tend to read my books like with a fine tooth comb, and this book is not a reading copy, right? Like this is nothing.
You use a backboard to read your books?
I always read a backboard on my books. I put them down, and but now I've been reading books digitally a lot, right? Like, so I've been reading books. I have a pull list, but they don't come out of my bags now. Even I'll read the books digitally just so I can get the information and say, wow, that look what just happened here. You better go back and get that book right now because look what we just heard about over here. And like I said, I bought a stack this week, right? Like so here, I'll run you through this, and so we have time, and if it's just the two of us, you can see. So here are things that I've been thinking about, like so, and you can see, like I use Mile High because people disparage Mile High, but keep on disparaging Mile High because they tend to have a lot of really nice minor keys that people aren't searching for very cheap, and the quality has been great. So this first appearance, you know who this first appearance is in here? Aris. So the blonde haired Green Lantern. Bendis has spoken about her. Popped up in Superman. She's one of those Green Lanterns. I start hearing about Green Lantern again. I'm buying copies of this. We see now, here's one that literally $1 book, right? Remember Forceworks, right? This is first appearance.
Unbelievably, yeah.
Look at this. I mean, like in like one of these things, right? Like back. So
that's pretty neat.
Yeah. So
I didn't even know they made those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. Me either. So these were $1 books, and then, but more important to me, I'm like, okay, no one's going to chase Forceworks, but there's a character in issue 6, and for those who don't know, Forceworks is about to pop up again in the Iron Man 2020. We're going to see Forceworks 2020, and there's a character in here who's very cybernetic based. She's recruited by Tony Stark. We haven't seen her pop up again, but she'd be perfect to sort of pop up. And this is issue 6, right? Is where she makes her first appearance. I believe her name is like Cyber or something, or I'd have to look it up. It's on my site again. Another character I've spoken about a lot. So this character popped up in most recent in this Darth Vader series that's going on, Target Vader, right? And this guy right here, for those who don't know, if you haven't seen it, he is the first character that was created in the Marvel series that had not really shown up in the Star Wars series, and there he's on the first page, right? Like, so Valance the Hunter, right? Or Valance the Hunter. So he's played a big part in this Zach Thompson series that's out. Now that we're seeing all these Star Wars series come up again on D+, on the Disney Plus series, this is a kind of character that, again, I think I paid like $12 maybe for these copies, and again, this is like early Star Wars. They're near mint plus copies. I'm not going to be buying like see, this item was A1 certified on eBay, right? But again, copies that you're looking for of, like, here's another one, Livewires, right? You ever even hear of this book? But they were just popping up in a solicit again as and I think I saw maybe Nick popped this up on his site as well. And this is Adam Warren, who has a huge following, right? He does.
Yeah, no, I've not seen that book before.
Yeah, and they're appearing again in I want to say maybe Weapon X, but again, you'll have to look at the site. Drax the Destroyer 1. Look at these. These were $2-3 copies of this. You're going to see this character Cammy. Cammy's a really interesting character. She's popped up throughout the cosmic stuff going on in Marvel. She's going to be featured alongside. Oh man, am I going to lose it now? No, she's going to be featured. Anyway, Cosmic Ghost Rider. She's going to be the Cosmic Ghost Rider sort of companion, right? So we're seeing this character Cammy, who first popped up in Drax the Destroyer. She popped up in the Avengers Arena books. Again, cheap buys. No one is looking for these books, but Apocalypse versus Dracula, right? What did we just see? The Clan Akaba or whatever it is pop up. These cheap copies all over available. This Avengers. I grabbed 5 copies of this. This is Miss Marvel joins the Avengers before she joined it anywhere else, right? Have you seen the Avengers Ultron Revolution 11? These Avengers kid books, just like we saw the Spider-Man kid books pop up for that variant, watch for these books to start to really move a little. And this is a great cover,
yeah,
right?
That's a cool, a real shrewd buy.
So
I
this
like that one a lot.
this was a G plus cool, and I want to give him credit. God, I got to think who it was, but he brought that up like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I just started buying those copies of. I know Nick had put up on Key Collector after it had been out for a little bit, but first appearance of Pei, right? Pei, who just showed up in that Contagion. This is where she becomes the new Iron Fist, right? She's in the new So we see them starting to move with these legacy characters. So we see a new Iron Fist character show up. So that was Iron.
Well, it'll be interesting if they put if they make it a female Iron Fist in on the or like on TV or in the films. Like we don't get rid of Netflix.
The stink
I forget
of,
who was the guy? Who was the actor?
Oh my God! I only know that.
Yeah, because no one paid attention, right? I mean, it was just painful. But the point is, that would be interesting, and it would certainly be. It wouldn't be surprising. It might piss off a lot of like diehard Iron Fist fans, but it won't be an upset.
Yeah, it would just be upsetting because then I think you lose one of the big dynamics, which is like
absolutely.
Yeah, I think, but also like not only do you lose that eventual Power Man, Iron Fist, like growing down, but you also miss that dynamic with Colleen Wing, who I thought was one of the successful things that came out of that series. Actually, like I would have followed the Daughters of the Dragon.
She was great, and I love the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, Colleen Wing. The last or the issue there where it's just like a horrifically graphic issue. I think that's a smart spec book that has never taken off. And someday when the public figures out what's going on in there, people are going to go nuts about it and grab those books up and start paying goofy money for them.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, you have to take time also to go through boxes. Like I can't say that I'm successful. I go looking for something. I'll say if I'm going to if I'm traveling with my wife, right? Like she used to give me an hour to go to like oyster happy hour because she hates shellfish. Now she gives me an hour to go like comic digging. I find a local comic shop in the neighborhood and I'll go through and I'll just start pulling books. And I don't go with a list because I know sort of the gaps in my collection. I know sort of I'm looking at covers. I'm looking at things that may pop up. I have my phone in my pocket, right? So you don't need to have a list or to be searching. You just need to know sort of what to look for. Like I'll always buy. I just found a copy of this Ghost Rider, right? And I'm like, oh. That I know is the first appearance of Asmodeus. I know they've been doing a lot in terms of like Devils and what's going on with Mephisto and what's going on with Johnny Blaze. So, oh yeah, will I buy this for $4? It's issue 53. That's like near mint plus and cool cover to boot on that. Yeah, I'll buy that. Will I buy like the Damnation, like the Greg Smallwood, beautiful connecting covers that probably features your sort of first appearance of your like Midnight Suns or whatever you're going to having, including Elsa Bloodstone, who's about to blow up again because of she's going to be featured in Deadpool and she's going to have more exposures than she's had before. So everyone chases a series, but grab Bloodstone stuff. Look at that was the Ghost Riders of the Avengers, right? And then you had again the Mephisto cover. So these were cheap Damnation covers. That was a series that people sort of slept on. This series is popping up in a big way. Mephisto is going to be popping up in Marvel in a big way soon. I'd be buying up those Mephisto versus the X-Men Fantastic Four books back from the 80s, right? Like, to me, that's a good buy. These Doctor Strange.
That's an can we talk a little bit about Mephisto and also Bloodstone? You talk about so much shit so fast.
Sorry.
It's hard to keep up. No, I enjoy it. And okay, so one, there's this whole fucking thread on. See, I don't do a lot of like looking at CBSI, okay, or really any of the groups. I kind of peruse them a little bit.
Right.
Fuck, I don't do a good job of looking at the Facebook group on Comic Book Wars, for Christ's sake. But anyway, there was this elaborate thread in one of the groups. I think it was CBSI. Don't quote me. That was talking about how fucking terrible of a buy Elsa Bloodstone ones are now. You know. Call me crazy. Those books are back down. I think her and Adam the Blue Marvel, for whatever reason, the groundswell is there. It's just a matter of time before they get a TV show or a movie, but they're certainly going to get another iteration, another limited series. Century, same way.
Sentry. That's a great.
That Elsa Bloodstone is appearing in Deadpool. I think is just kind of like a flair. I like her character. for a number of different reasons. I like that book for a number of different reasons. And it's true of all three of those books. So that's just kind of my take on that. I don't necessarily suggest going and like sweeping eBay of all the 9/8s, right? But hedging your bets, particularly if you can buy those books in the wild and you've got a shot at slamming 9/8s, is a no-brainer to me.
And try finding, like I said, one's one thing, but try finding like issue 3 of Elsa Bloodstone series, right? Like, talk about a book that has a super low print run out there. It's one of those books that I've sold and bought multiple times. Like I've sold it and then I bought it again and then I sell it. It's one of those trending books for me that I want in my collection.
Which one's that? The homage? There's different. I can't remember. I can't keep any of those.
It's the one straight. It's like a beige cover. She's blonde. It's like the cleavage cover.
The Indiana Jones one.
Yeah.
Is it the Indiana Jones one?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, that's what it is. Like the cleavage cover, right?
And with the Blue Marvel.
Oh, Blue Marvel, absolutely, because he just popped up again in Marvel 1000 as part of the new 3Xs, right?
Thank you. And then his book, his miniseries, Submariner.
Yeah.
Integral to that story. Everybody's balls deep on Submariner spec.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see if that's the kind of like angle they go with that character. Now, I think, unfortunately, my hope and dream that what's his name, Giancarlo Esposito, the guy that played
in Breaking Bad,
right? That he'll be cast as Blue Marvel. I think that's more like George fantasy than it is like real reality. But that would just
Wesley Snipes. Didn't you see? Did you just see on Netflix Eddie Murphy's new movie that he just did? Wesley Snipes in there. He'd be a great Blue Marvel. Come on, he's buff, he's ready. Absolutely. If he's not going to be played, have him be Blue Marvel. He's got the gray in the hair. He can do that character.
Yeah, and so it's hard for me, like to try to put together complete sets. I like that stuff as sets. I like buying it as sets. I like selling that stuff as sets, and same deal with the Century.
Yeah,
right.
Century's great.
Century's interesting too. Which number one do you like? Because everybody's got a different opinion. Whether they like the 1 in 25, the San Diego Comic Con, and the A cover for whatever reason has like this groundswell of support. Now I get that it's a tough 9/8, but unless it's a 9/8, you know what I mean? Like they're much more common, obviously, than the 1 in 25. And I think the SDCC book is a pain in the ass too. You can find them on eBay, but I don't see them anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like I go to cons, I go to small shows, big shows. I see them nowhere.
I think the 1 to 25 is the way you go with that one. I mean, I think you have to go with that one. And the Sentry is a really interesting character because, again, peripherally tied into what Donny Cates is doing, right? Like we just saw him. He just popped up again in it wasn't the Savage Avengers. It was the other one that the new Strike Force that they just had come out. So he ended up being, no, actually, I'm sorry, it was Agents of Wakanda. God, so see, Marvel's pumping out all these books now, right? And no one's
tough, dude.
If I can't keep track of it, I don't know.
I'm fucked. Let me say that again. If Gary can't keep track, I'm fucked. I've got no shot.
So we saw sort of. So this whole run, right, is now picking up interest again, right? This Doctor Strange, because they brought up that the Loki series is going to tie directly into this Doctor Strange run that Cates had. And it was already, people were already into the 1 to 25, where I have tons of those around.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, so people are already into that book, right? Because it was the first appearance of their dog that dies, that eventually dies in there, right? Like people are already chasing like a character of a dog. But what's really interesting is that's Loki becomes the Sorcerer Supreme. I could see them easily like popping in and doing something with Loki in there and getting there's gonna be such fluidity between the Disney Plus streaming and between the Marvel MCU movies that we're going to see a whole new avenue of spec open up in terms of Marvel properties, because you're going to see things you never thought were going to pop up. Like that What If series is going to be like like start tracking through everything, because they're going to be so much that every week you're going to have to be ready to list your stuff up, and it's going to be crazy. I mean, when is that launching, on Tuesday? And I think the Marvel series will start popping up in 2020, right? Like that's when they're first due to come out. So I think the Loki series, I think the Scarlet Witch and Vision series, the Winter Soldier, Captain America, all things you buy on the low again, right? Maybe people have bought that Tom King Vision series, but the old Scarlet Witch series where she had the twins, right? People are chasing Young Avengers, expecting that connection to come in. It's just so many different avenues that you don't need to get caught in one lane. You can pick your own lane. And that's what I think you like people to do. I think I want people to do. I think most of the people who are readers want you to just read and figure it out, right? Because that's the fun of the reading of it, right? And yeah, people just want to make money also, and I like doing that. Like here's another one, right? Like Buy this Hood series, right?
Great book.
How long have people been talking about this Hood series? Forever, right? But it's still cheap and
dirt cheap. I grab them when I see them.
Artwork, man, come on, like killer.
Let me ask you this. Yeah, wait, are you buying them on eBay? Clearly not.
No, right. I get.
But you'll pick them up for dirt cheap in the wild.
I pull them out of boxes.
That's like somebody asked about Next Men 14, right? So I got a buddy who we were in Baltimore together. We actually met in Baltimore. Super nice dude, and he. I legitimately like crashed one of those fucking buying groups over me making fun of people making fun of Next Men 14. Like I go, it's like a fucking $20 book. Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
But anyway,
it destroyed.
Like it should be a $0 book. Like let's be honest.
Yeah.
But
it's a novel. It's
a $20 book.
If you're not a Hellboy collector, you don't want it. If you're a Hellboy collector, you want that book, and it's worth a $20 buy-in.
I mean, I'm a Hellboy collector, and I don't want that book.
Yeah. What?
I would buy that book for $1. But anyway, my buddy was like, he's like, oh, did you sell any Next Men 14s? Knowing how ridiculous this whole thing was, and I was like, no, because if a book doesn't cost like $50, I rarely have the energy to actually list them.
Yeah. That's,
you know what I mean? And I it's not like I'm some sort of like big deal comic book flipper. Like, are you kidding me? But I'm also not a moron. And the opportunity cost to try to sell stuff on eBay when it's not your day job.
That's the key.
You know what I mean? Like
that's it. It's not. Do you know how many $20 books you got to move to like make it worth it when it comes tax time, PayPal time, eBay fee time? Like, you got to pay for the boxes, the extra cardboard, the painter's tape. Yeah.
You got to take time to print it, the packing tape. Like, it's a pain in the ass. And like, I can do that if I don't have a demanding job, if I don't have other social obligations, if it's the right time of year, maybe.
Yeah.
But I surely can't do that with every piece of trash. And, for me, it's really kind of like putting together a collection where I can sell some like bigger books to buy some even bigger books, and then have sort of like the treasure there that I enjoy, like the little pieces, the things that are only important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you get that, right? Like,
total. I had bought, actually right before the news came out, I had bought Justice League 1. I bought the 9.8 triple signature signed because I wanted Maguire and I wanted Giffen and I wanted J.M. DeMatt. I wanted all of the original writers and artists on that. And then the next day they're like, oh, Max Lord, they tweeted out Max Lord, and all of a sudden that book started to spring up. That book is being put away because that's a book to me that's a seminal book. Like the humor in that book, the action in that book. I love that comic. So I don't care if that book doubled from what I bought for it. I'm not selling that book. That's something that I bought slabbed. And now I'm tending to buy books that I want, that I know I'm going to keep. I'll buy a slabbed copy. I'm at the point where I'm like, I'll sell 10 of these books, and then I'll just keep that on my PayPal, and I'll use that to buy that slabbed copy of that book that I want. But you're right. It's tough to get out of bed, and we sound like a-holes, but it's tough to get out of bed for $20 in the morning when you have a job already, you have other commitments. Like I said, I have a family. I have a daughter who's getting ready to go to middle school and a son who's getting ready to go to high school. I work a job, my wife works a job, we commute from another borough. So the fact that I'm putting this stuff out, and the fact that some people like I tend to get pretty nice. I run my little YouTube videos, which gets like a nice couple hundred views, and for the most part, I get thumbs up. I don't even see the thumbs up or thumbs down that that are dragged along with you.
Don't worry. Now that you're associated with me, for whatever reason, people will hate you forever. It's okay.
So I'm branded.
No, that's not true.
But
you were our first guest on Comic Book Wars, and people didn't begin to hate you at all. Maybe there's too close of an association now that you've done the sole interview.
Comic Pariah. That was going to be my next name. The Comic Pariah. I think that has a nice.
Okay,
nice,
makes sense. I think that's my title. But
that might be that might be actually.
You think I should get a shirt that says that?
A couple people who could have that setup. All right, so how are we doing here? We have some time to show something.
Yeah, well, we're over past 9, so the people who've left us to watch Watchmen are gone. But there's no reason to stop now. Don't worry, we can get into the stuff I got back from CGC. I've got a ton of stuff, and I'm having fun. What do you got?
I'm excited. So here's one I've been having fun with, right? And so this Marvel 1000 series, right? Like it's it came out, and I had shown on the MeWe page. I actually took every Al Ewing page out of there, and when you took every Al Ewing page out, it became a 22-page comic book tracking the history of this Eternity Mask. And then 1001 came out, and it only had like 4 pages of relevant stuff. Everything else was the fluff that filled up most of Marvel 1000. And it was like, if you didn't read that book, it was all different creative teams, like super creative teams, doing little riffs on different characters throughout the history of the 80 years of Marvel Universe.
2-3 pages.
Yeah, and so I started to pull those 22 pages out, and so they started to retcon a lot of things. So one thing they did was this character Blind Justice, right? So this is a character that showed up in Solo Avengers number 8, right? There's Midtown again, my source of great cheap books. I don't mind putting that out. I mean, not Midtown. I'm sorry, Mile High again. So this Blind Justice character was someone who had been in Marvel 1000, who had shown up way back as a different character, and they made this connection between this character and one of the original like scientists who was working on this this Eternity Mask that is now being retconned into Marvel. And Marvel loves to do that, right? We just talked about Sentry. We talked about the Blue Marvel. This is Marvel's kind of thing. They love to go back, dig it in, put the thread together, and then come out with this. And the one thing I started reading after that, which is a book I think everyone should reread, is the Marvels Project. And the Marvels Project.
It's actually one of Jimmy's favorites. I've not read it, and I've failed to pick it up. I need to grab like a trade paperback.
So first of all, Brubaker Epting is all. If you're a comic guy, all you need to know. Yeah, I mean.
Oh, I didn't even know it was Brubaker. Yeah, I'd definitely grab a trade paperback.
So this guy in the corner is funny. So this guy is actually the Angel, Thomas Holloway, and he was a character who showed up on one page in Marvel 1000. Eternity was holding these characters in his hand. He was in the back. I tracked him down a little. He got the guns and the mask from the Two Gun Kid. It's shown in the Marvels Project on the very last page of the last issue. They give this over, and then all of a sudden, I saw in Captain America they were bringing Scourge back, right? Scourge, right? So they brought him back, and he's the guy who says justice is served. And you knew that was going to happen if you read the solicits. And I started reading again, and I saw so there was another character, right? And again, this character is the Phantom Reporter, and it says down here, Scourge of the Underworld, right? And so these characters, it seems like, and I've spoken to Nick from Key Collector about this. We sort of have an ongoing like dialogue where we have a running theory. We, in our public personas, we don't get along. Privately, we get along. This is a really, this is Daring Mystery Comics. This is one of those anniversary issues Marvel was putting out. This is a variant cover as well for that issue. And he's holding the 2 guns. He's got the mask. We see at the end, whoever's putting on the Eternity Mask has the 2 guns, the mask. He talks about that he was a journalist. This is an interesting character, popped up in the 12. I'm always looking for these, like how is, and I know Al Ewing. Al Ewing's a really very into Marvel history. He's already tied in the Thomas Holloway character. This character, again, this is a $3 book. I think that you could see this character. You might see You might see one of those 3 X's and Night Thrasher, right? Night Thrasher showed up in Marvel 1000 again, along with Blue Marvel and Jimmy Woo, who's connected to the Agents of Atlas. Maybe that's going to end up being this guy who's wielding the Eternity Mask. But the guns and this come from the Two Gun Kid. These are 2 guns that we're going to follow through a lot of the series Marvel projects. Thomas Holloway, you'll never, of course, he appeared first in Marvel 1, so you'll never be able to afford that, no matter what grade you want on that book. But you have to try to track those books that people may be going after down the line. Go over on the blog. It is defunct. I'm not going to put new things. I'm going to be on MeWe, but I have a whole post on this. I have all 22 pages posted up. Check it out. Read it. If you're into like just tracking history and then finding potential books that down the line could have some interest, these are books to look at. And again, it's that small percentage of you who are out there. Oh, there's my wife calling.
Does that mean you got to go?
No, not at all. She's talking to my daughter. It's fine over there.
Right. As long as I'm not going to cause immediate marital pain and suffering.
Oh no, we had enough of that. I told you that movie last night. And let me go in. I want to see your CGC stuff, and I figure we'll wrap up the night with maybe a little Spider-Man spec, because I'm really interested in Spider-Verse and where your head is at with that. The other thing is, and Topher and I have spoken a lot about this for years. The Multiversity Guidebook, right? So everything in DC right now, because we've spoken so much about Marvel, these are like sort of all the variants for the Multiversity Guidebook. This is the one that's awful, and I talk about all the time. That's the Grant Morrison, the sketch one, but these were the highest ratio variants. And this has so many first appearances of characters, including the first appearance of that map, right? That we've seen popping up all over DC. We just saw Perpetua popping up. They're going to be tying all these things together again. I would be buying these Multiversity books. These are so cheap. They were bought in spades in terms of like, if you go through boxes of variants, of DC variants, you will find these on the cheap. You're going to find a lot of first characters, just like those Spider-Geddon books, which we'll talk about in a little while, Spider-Verse books as well. So
let me pick your brain while we're talking DC. So I've been trying to, and I was spot on with the Green Lantern shit. You know,
yeah,
that was not a tough call, right? That they're gonna like, well, we've done Watchmen, and people seem to like that. Well, of course they're gonna do Green Lantern next, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Where do we go next with the Warner Media? I mean, my gut tells me it's Constantine, either on HBO or in a Joker-esque film. We see his new series under the DC Black label coming out. I imagine that with the success of the Joker, it's now the most profitable film in the history of comics. That they're going to continue to do kind of like those darker, edgier, sort of like comic book, not really comic book things. But I'm not really sure beyond that, like a Zatanna film, maybe like they actually do the Guillermo del Toro Justice League Dark movie that the screenplay is already written for. Where do we see that? I mean, if you're a betting man, if DC hires Gary tomorrow and says, hey, we need some insight from the DSPECtive, what would you tell him?
I would go magic horror, because I think right now, if you're looking at what's sort of trending in comics and an area that really has not been tapped into, that whole Justice League Dark, like they've been trying to get that off the ground forever, right? Like Doug Liman was attached to it right up until he left the project. He would have been a great director for it. You're starting to see them develop this like Strange Adventures, right? And you're seeing so Strange Adventures is going to be a comic and it's going to be a series at the same time on DC. We just saw on Strange Adventures, they showed Adam Strange and they showed Swamp Thing, right? We know Swamp Thing ran into some problems with DC in terms of production and them not being able to sort of put into it what they wanted to get out of it. No matter what the true story is, that's the story, they're sticking to it. But you have Zatanna. You have Wonder Woman as possible inroads to that magic universe, right? Like with Cersei, if they go the Cersei route, then it's really what a better way than to have Wonder Woman be the core of, like they did with the new Justice League Dark. She's the center of that universe when you come out of there. So you end this the 80s, you go into the magic part of it, and that next Wonder Woman movie becomes a Justice League Dark movie where she's recruited these sort of supernatural characters, sort of the antithesis to that Zack Snyder Justice League that people, you know, like either wax on poetically about what could have been or like live in the real world. Sorry for anyone. But to me, that's the route you go. You go the magic route, or you expand out what I see what they're going to do with Stars and Stripes. I know they released the episode titles for for that Stargirl series, right? And it looks like
well, here's kind of my question with that. Where the fuck are they going to release it?
That's an interesting question, right? Because they just released all the titles. It looks like they're going to tie in this sort of characters directly from that Stars and Stripes series. It looks like they're running through it, right? So you would think like, oh, this could be a springboard for JSA, right? Like they're bringing the JSA back in a big way. I think Legion of Superheroes is such a confusing property that they won't touch that for a while, though. You know, maybe if they ever have a real Superboy movie come out, maybe then eventually that happens there. But I think Justice Society of America, these legacy heroes, is going in the past, maybe. So I would either go to the magic end, the horror end, because we're seeing all these, right? Like what are the hot books? The plot, right? Like all the horror books that are coming out, Afterlife with Archie, like the horror books are driving a lot of the speculation market right now. To me,
what's amazing, new readers in large, I mean, like, because I pull new readers in all the time. I try to keep people away from speculating on books, spending big money on books, but I'm constantly putting comics in the hands of new readers. I don't want to say uniformly, but predominantly, they're like, oh, there are horror comics? That's cool. Tell me more. You know, and that's what they're interested in. I don't know what it is about thrillers or that kind of angle, but they love it, man. They really do.
Yeah, it's and you know what? I think they're getting a younger crowd with that horror too, right? I think that's really that's driving in. You know, if I were a comic publisher, and I don't know if they have it right now, but like I would partner up with Blumhouse, right? Like, because Blumhouse is the name in horror movies right now. They're the ones who are reinventing franchises. I think they're going to bring Scream back again. I think they're doing all these sort of, you know, tying these franchises together. Reminds me a lot of sort of like hack slash, right? Tim Seeley's like hack slash.
If they ever make a hack slash TV show, it'll be my favorite day. Now I say that, and I'm holding 0.98s, and
me too, but it's,
you know what I mean, like, which sucks because that's a book I should have in 9.8, and about half of the important covers. Yeah, there are just so many cool ones. There's one specifically that I've been looking for the better part of a year. It just never comes up. You know what I mean?
That pops up a lot. You know what? Hack slash always I find a lot of stock in, and when I go to places that tend to carry a lot of independent books, that's where I've never bought any hack slash off eBay. All my hack slash copies have come right out of boxes for the most part, and I found some nice variants that I can't even find on eBay, to tell you the truth, just like you sort of said. And
yeah, absolutely. There's some great hack slash books. It's low hanging fruit. If you're looking to make money on indie books and you're just like, well, I don't know anything about independent comics, go to the hack slash boxes, pick books where she's in a skirt and her tits are hanging out, grab them and sell them on eBay.
That's those are the kinds.
It's easy. The ones that really interest me that you can still readily find on eBay, which I'm kind of shocked about, are the DDP. They weren't recalled, but DDP wouldn't, and I'm sorry, Diamond wouldn't sell them through the previews catalog, and DDP had to sell them independently, you know, directly from the publisher. I can't remember the numbers, but I've written about them in the past. I want to say like 16 and 17 or 17 and 18. They're the Regenerator, or you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's parts 2 and 3 of a 3-part series there.
Okay.
Yeah, and as somebody mentioned in the live chat, right? Like all the Frisson covers are just easy. You know, ooh, Jenny Frisson, pick it up.
Sorry,
there is a live chat. I've ignored most of it.
I'm not ignoring you.
Trash, but I know you can't see it. Yeah.
I could probably get it on my phone maybe if I try. But so again, right? Horror, like this American Carnage, right? Like, to me, buy up copies of American Carnage. That's, the Ben Oliver cover. Again, that's a series Vertigo is now. Rest in peace. Gideon Falls, right? Everyone knows Gideon Falls, but don't just get the one. There's so many great those variant covers for each issue. So each kind of face on it.
Yeah, I passed a 1/3 print today.
Got a young.
The third print and the first print have the same cover, right?
Yeah, so you're looking at
that's the Jock cover.
Yeah, that's a Jock, and all I have of one is actually, I think I have like 5 of the Jock covers. I think that's all I had bought at the time on that. Even like Tula Lotay did a cover, right? Like so I keep buying, and the
a hell of a read,
huh?
Gideon Falls is a hell of a read.
Well, again, I mean, and again, right? We just saw. I had written a lot about this book, The Plot, right? And this captured imagination at New York Comic Con, right? It was like selling for crazy. People loved the right, this cover. This was the second print that just came out. Again, another, Vault is getting so good, right? It's sort of playing the market right now.
Well, they have books that I enjoy that no one seems to give a shit about.
They're the high. If you use Comic Book Roundup, which I know you do, they are the highest rated issuer of books out there. Like, their books tend to go 9.8. They appeal to like really discerning readers. I think a big problem is, one, some stores don't even carry Vault. 2, a lot of their things tend to be limited run. But if you look all the way back to Heathen, right? Like, Heathen's going to come out and say what you want about like the director of Twilight directing it, but guess what? Twilight made a lot of money. You know what? I believe in Heathen. I'm excited. I mean, more like weird. Well, here's one of the older ones, right? Like, I found a copy of, you get the first Creature Commandos, which I think are always an interesting, characters to sort of check out. American Vampire, we know Scott Snyder's bringing that back again, so you want to definitely get in on this.
Now, is that the actual variant or the free one?
No, this is the actual variant.
Man, that's a hard book to find.
Yeah, it is. And again, I'm only going to
go through the other one all the time. You know what I mean? Grab it, sell it.
It was tough to find.
That's the one I want to keep.
And
do you want to explain for our readers what the difference is between those two? Yeah, because that's something a lot of people don't know about, I don't think.
So look, I mean, so basically, again, you always, the barcodes, right? So on the barcodes, you can always see, like, right down there, see that 00121, right? And then you see, of course, on the back, well, let's see if I can get it up there. It actually has, you can see the May 2010 indicia on there, right? So you always, and I don't have a copy of the free one, but you have plenty. You could show off on the side.
I'd have to run a flight of steps, but yeah. And the point is, the free one, they're easy to find.
Yeah, they're all. Be careful though. Like watch, buyer beware when you're on eBay and like someone's.
It's the same deal with like the modern reprints of the Charlton books.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like they're just those kinds of little differences that everybody's got to be acutely aware of. And I incidentally made a mistake in the weekend update with a book, and I can't remember which one it was. Just trying to fly through and pump out a weekly content. And I hope Jimmy went back and edited that. I can't necessarily say that he did, but I'll try to do a revision about that next week's weekend update. Thanks to Eric for pointing that out to me. I believe it was Eric. Anyway, keep going.
And that happens with a lot of books, right? Like I collect like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Like there's so many prints of that, and it's so difficult to discern which print is which print. You really have to get the book in front of you, open it up, be able to look inside. My comic shop is a great resource to sort of, because they always have all the prints listed down, and you can see what they look like pretty clearly. Just like Killing Joke was tough to find different prints of. That Harley Quinn trade back is another one. New Mutants graphic novel. All books that have several printings, but you really have to know what you're looking for to be able to grab the right printing. So always be aware of that. Always read the description. Don't just buy the picture alone, because a lot of times you'll see a little thing that says, this is a stock photo, right? It's not, you're not necessarily getting what you're seeing in the photo. So make sure you're reading. Last thing I've shown that, that Archie 23, which is the key Afterlife with Archie book, right? That was the whole start. It was a Francesco Francavilla cover that first showed that Afterlife with Archie universe.
That's the oversized magazine variant, which, for the record, I tried to run and buy when I was in Baltimore, and then it was already gone by the time I found out that where it was, and I couldn't get one. They're a pain in the ass. They're not real expensive. No. Right now, I like that as a buy, but it's a long-term hold for me. And, frankly, I am going to piss around like I've done time and time again with books and wait around and not have any. And then all of a sudden we'll have that like horror Archie universe, and that book will be like $1,000 9.8, and I'm going to be like, fuck. Yeah,
you'll look back at this conversation and kick yourself again.
Yeah, exactly.
But
you're like, we talked about it live, and you still screwed it up. Good job, George.
I think I have a near mint minus. Like I see one little ding on that that I have, but
it's a tough book.
You're looking for and here's another one that I think is a really nice. I think this has become one of the iconic like covers for the series.
This is gorgeous
for issue 2. You can still find these, and also here's the other part of that series which I love, and this is not the main one. This is the second part of it, but this is the Betty and Veronica 262. 261, of course, is the first Vampironica and also the first Betty the Vampire Slayer. I think you're going to see this book like this has been a crazy book, right? Like people in the know have been hunting this book forever. 261 is the first appearance. 262 is the one that's a little easier to find. I actually like the cover better, but but
it's black. It's also a pain in the ass. And for the record, there's newsstands in that book.
Like I said, that was a book I was hunting. That's the one book that comes up in my searches constantly. Like I'll be at work and I'll be like, oh wait, let me see that. No, it's $265 or it's this or that. I think that series, you had the Jughead the Hunger book. You had that book spinning off. In fact, there's a great Robert Hack cover which looks like a ripped off cover, and you just see the first page and it's like Frankenmoose carrying Vampironica. I think it's the last issue of the Red Sonja and meets Betty and Veronica, and I forget, Vampirella. Is that like the team up that's going on right now? But talk about a tough book to find, and it's a beauty. I'll be showing it on my MeWe site soon. But I've been rambling on. I'm sure you have some things to show us, Nico. What do you got going on? And I'm gonna look at the chat a little. Let's see if I have any questions or.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck. You caught me vaguely reading the live chat. I don't know why Jesus, Lord have mercy. People get very upset about like this person stole this content, this person stole that content. Steal my fucking weekend update. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. You can copy and paste it wherever the fuck you want. Jimmy doesn't pay me to write it. I don't give a shit, and I think it's good advice, and I hope it helps somebody make some cash. The nicest thing about going to Baltimore was meeting people that made money reading the weekend update. This one dude gave me a hug, which was very uncomfortable, but I knew he was genuinely like, oh, thanks for doing that. And then I was like, okay, human contact, stop. No, you don't have boobs.
I read a little in the live chat. I don't want to read it. It's gonna.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but I hope that everybody gets along. Yeah, group hug, that kind of stuff. All right, so what are we gonna look at? You want to see the nonsense I did on site in Baltimore?
Let's see what you got, and then I'll wrap up with. I'll show some Spider-Man books where people can make money. And maybe
here's the question: do you want just a random stack, or do you want to see what I? Because I've just got random stacks of crap that I buy when I go places, or do you want to see what I some of the stuff that I pressed, or I'm sorry, that I slabbed on site in Baltimore?
Let me see what you slabbed in Baltimore, because I'm always curious what people are slabbing and what.
Right. So I showed you this earlier. Bada bing. Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Oh, nice. That one, I picked up that book raw for $400.
An 8.5. Oh.
Got an 8.5. People do not know how to grade giant size books. Mm-hmm. They thankfully undergrade them. Some, the best dealers undergrade them. I shouldn't say that. Really good dealers.
People keep it, just to clear for people out there. So people who keep those books in raw condition are constantly undergrading those giant size books because they're thinking.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think also that CGC is all over the map. I think I got the benefit of the bounce on that particular copy. I'm pretty excited about it. I'll sit on it.
Yeah.
All right. This one's another one I'll sit on. I did not get the benefit of the bounce on it, but that's okay. I picked up one of these suckers. This was a $300 raw book, and I don't know what the hell I'll get out of a 9.8.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, out of an 8.0 rather. It's it's not a
might be tough.
I got 9.8 fatigue. I just sort of assumed that it's I wasn't anticipating much higher, but I was hoping
at least
again
maybe,
I was hoping. I thought it was an 8.5. Was hoping for a 9.0. I got an 8.0. It's all right.
It was the Russian.
They treated me so well on my Golden Age books. I can't cry about it. This was one that was well, I had the damn thing anyway, and I don't know that they're necessarily going to do anything with this character, but first Norman Osborn, bada bang. Yeah, she's an 8.0.
Now see, that's nice. Now see, that's what it's all about. Like being happy to get that in an 8.0 as compared to the Master Kung Fu in 8.0. Knowing.
Which is funny, right? Because the other book's super hot. Nobody, this book's not, and I'm like, what? 8.0's perfect. I can bank that sucker. Now this was a pain in the ass. I'm shocked that I got any grade on this.
That's nice.
That's a hard book in any damn grade.
And you know what? It's kind of cool. That's 5.5 for the Fighting Five. They got it.
Right?
That's a keeper.
Yeah. All right. I did a couple different copies of the same book here. Bada bang. Oh,
that's
nice.
Yeah.
I like.
You want to send the lower? I'll take it off your hands.
Yeah. Here's why I like Tomb 1. Dracula's coming.
Yeah, of course.
Like, what are you, insane? Who doesn't think that? You think they're going to do Mahershala Ali Blade without Dracula? Get the fuck out of here.
No.
They might not do him in the first movie, but they'll do him in the second movie. They'll do him in the third movie. You don't think Mahershala Ali's going to get a trilogy? Get the fuck out of here. You don't think you'll do Dracula with Elsa Bloodstone? You know what I mean? Like, and again, can I get a Giancarlo Esposito? As was rumored, which is clearly not going to happen. He was just, apparently spotted somewhere. And now is on the Mandalorian TV show, and people were like, he's going to be in Marvel, and then came up with some what goes. Was it a rumor when in reality it's like comic book fan fiction posing as news.
Oh, that's gonna
you know what I mean?
Dan Stevens with the Eternals cast because he's filming in London, and he was doing a live show in London, and they had him with the Eternals, and they're like, Dan Stevens in the Eternals, and it's like ridiculous. Like that's what's happened with the news cycle. And what happens is, unfortunately, the same 6 sites keep rehashing the rumors till it becomes news, because then it gets picked up by like Screen Rant, or it gets picked up, over here or over there, and all of a sudden people are buying these books, and it does affect the market, because they can be buying my books, the real books that they need, instead of these books that are on rampant rumors going on, and I think that's what's hurting the industry, like people not knowing what are the legit sources to go to, right? And that's something I always try to do, writing about those sites as well, but when you have thousands and thousands of people who are just willing to chase after certain things, there's not a whole lot you can do. So you have a few few people are going to make some money, and you have some people who are going to spend money. But that's the nature of the game that this is. So keep going, Nico.
All right. This is one I was happy with.
That's it. See, I didn't see that one. That's a view.
Yeah. So the reason that I like this one, damn it.
Hold it to the right. Hold it more toward your left, I guess. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty. Yeah, now you got
that cover is important because while it's not one of the TNA covers, it's the one they use on like the treasuries, like the
when they release the
collected versions of the hardbacks, right? Time and time again. So I think it's still considered like I don't know, CGC call. I don't know what the fuck CGC calls it. Plus, there's a lingerie panel. Woo! Matt Baker.
Seduction of the Innocent labels, right? When they've appeared in SOTI, right?
Right. So it's I think it's a big book. I'm a big fan of it. I picked it up for $600 raw and fucked up. and Nerdbox Comics on Facebook. These guys are miracle workers when it comes to cleaning and pressing older books. The guy's just got talent, and he's local in the greater Pittsburgh area, which I really appreciate. So I'm able to like get books to him, hand delivered. He did like Dr. Frankenstein. He brought my dead ass book back to life. And
I'm going to Philly next week. Maybe I'll make a side trip because I have some, I have some books, some older Golden Age books that I guess people like to take pencils back in the day and do like pencil like outlining along the characters. So I have a couple books that are beautiful, but like one of those Tegra books that has the pencil outline all along her, and I'm like, oh, how do you get that out of a book, right? Because it's like
dude, I left a stack of books at an antique shop. I was like, where are the price tags for this? And the dude opened it up, and he just fucking started writing inside the books, and I was just like, what the fuck? And I was still gonna take them anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I can get that shit out. And I'm like, pardon me, sir. Perhaps in the future, may I suggest that you don't write inside of the books? He's like, I've been doing this for blah 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 years. I'm like, he's like, you don't know nothing. I'm like, just take the fucking books.
That's it.
I don't want them.
I just want to get out.
I hope you do well. You know what I mean? Like, I hope this whole thing works out for you. I hope somebody comes in here and buys that fucking sewing machine or whatever sort of shit you have over there that somebody wants, but not me.
No,
I'm gonna leave.
So, like, you end up in the attic as like made into a human skin lampshade if you're not careful with those.
Oh, dude, it was too much. It was all too much. All right, I picked up a Silver Surfer 1.
Yeah.
That fucker out the door. This was the other one that I slabbed on site. I shouldn't say I picked them up. These are books I'm slabbing on site.
Yeah, that what was that, 8.5?
That's an 8.5.
That's nice.
Yeah, the gentleman that is the proprietor of Nerdbox Comics actually was like, "You want the fucking Submariner one? I should buy it. You can buy it," and kindly gave me that to purchase at a show, which I remain appreciative for. I'm still buying Miracle Man's. Yeah,
Mr. Miracle. I know who you mean.
For the record, or I'm sorry, Mr. Miracle. I can still do that too. For the record, let's talk about this one. This is a much nicer book than the 9.0. This is what they did. I need to get it regraded.
Yeah, that.
Read that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing.
No. Read what it says there.
DC Comics 496.
Yeah, do you get it? That's not 1996.
Yeah.
So they graded it as a modern book.
That is,
and I think they were a little hard on it, but that's okay. My buddy, who's harder on books than anybody I've, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, it's a 9.0. Just keep it like that. Don't be a pussy. And perhaps he's correct.
Send it back.
And then I just keep slabbing these books. I'll keep buying them.
Yeah.
I like Moira Spec. I think if they do a film, which they're going to, that the smart way to do the film is to do it after Hickman, just like they did with all of the other damn movies. And you start with that relationship. And it lets you tell any iteration, any timeline, any X-Men story you could ever possibly want in its own universe that is self-sustained and self-contained and can explode and kill people. And you know what I mean? Like, they can literally do whatever they want if they use her as the principal plot device. And if they do that, which is what I think they're going to do, I think that's what they came to Hickman and said, right? And now you've got, and I'm even more confident now than ever before, now that Feige is in charge of Marvel Creative, right?
That they'll have all these, well, didn't we see
that it'll all stem from that relationship, that they'll do that one story, and then everything just kind of blossoms and spawns out of there, which is why I'm hot on Phalanx books. And I really like the Uncanny 190.
Nimrod, right?
Right, which are dirt cheap. They're just dirt cheap. But I think you've got the time, right? Like I'm not running out and paying $10 for those books, but I'm pulling them out of dollar bins, pulling them out of $2 bins, $3 bins. And I'm guilty if I see like half a dozen copies in $10 bins. I will try to take all of them and make a deal.
Yeah,
like I'll buy 6, but I'll pay you $40. You know what I mean? But they've got to be the really nice copies that are potential 9/8s, potential 9/6s.
right.
That's kind of where I'm at with those the coming out of House of X and Powers of X. And then it's the big characters, right? I liked, and I talked a little bit about the weekend update. Like, we've seen what the price of Uncanny X-Men 266 is at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've seen what the price of like ASM 361 is at. Why the hell? I mean, it's just a matter of time before that happens for Bishop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, which doesn't make any sense to me, because for the record, I think the first appearance of Carnage is overvalued. I think the first appearance of Gambit is overvalued.
Mm-hmm.
And, the price of the first appearance of Bishop at like $10 is about where that book ought to be, with the other two being like $40 books, maybe. But I think you'll see, if they do something with Bishop in a comic that's like legitimate out of this Hickman run, you'll see those books double, triple in price, maybe quadruple in price. Instead of being $10 books, they become $40 books.
They become worth you selling them finally, right? That's they become worth you selling them finally. They're over. If they
do, right? Yeah, but I'm a buyer at like $10 for like high grade copies of that, and the same with the Phantom X first appearances. And we've talked about some of the other characters, but like I'm excited about the potential for an X-Men television and film universe for guys that are my age and guys that are your age that grew up on the X-Men. It's like finally there's a glimmer of hope.
Yeah. I want to start Starjammers, right? Like Uncanny X-Men 107. Like,
oh my God. Wait a sec. I'd probably, that like I'd fight Mike Tyson, the old video.
Yeah.
I'd probably fight Mike Tyson for a price variant of Uncanny 107.
Yeah. Like I said, that to me.
Yeah. I'd let Mike Tyson knock me the F out, right? Just one quick. Oh.
Yeah. That's, and again, I mean,
can I get my book? I'll wire my jaw shut.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, who's the,
and be happy with a wired. I'd be like, yeah, like Kanye in the back in the day with the straw. Yeah. Happy as can be.
I remember
a price variant.
Left, right. I'm trying to think what my controller was for that. But yeah, that Starjammer series, like you're seeing the Starjammers come back in Hickman's run. Like he obviously has an affinity for them. He likes them. They're in New Mutants. They were, the dad was in over in X-Men 1. So we're gonna see those, those Starjammers characters are gonna brace up. Look at Vulcan, right? Like Vulcan, a character that people are like, who's this? What a third Summers, that Deadly Genesis one. Talk about a cheap buy-in on that book, right?
Great spot. I'm glad you mentioned that. I gotta write that down on the I need to buy those books.
Well, what about what's Husk's ROM Annual 3? Is that Husk? Because she's supposed to be like, she's one of Hickman's favorites too. They keep bringing her up.
And Husks will win.
Black Tom just stole the show over in the first issue of X-Force. So is that X-Force over there? And I've been talking about that Black Tom book for a while. I mean, that's a great book. They're making that character. Hickman's is showing that he can make these characters that were like the loser characters, started with Gold Balls, moving to Cypher, who I think is really interesting, right? Like Cypher Spec, like he's sort of key and integral to the whole sort of thing going on. If you watch when he's walking with Professor X in that Powers of X or House of X issue, he touches one of the leaves, right? And he infects it with the phalanx. Like you actually see him. So early on, there's a scene in there that's going to come back to it again. And I think you and I, before we went live, we were talking a little bit about that. In the Starjammers 107, you also have, you're not going to buy it for this because Starjammers is the first appearance, but you have that Crystal of Makaran, which they talk about.
We did talk about that. Yeah.
Part of the Shi'ar Empire. And the big thing about this is, if you've been reading, that in Powers of X, House of X, the husband of the main doctor who's with the humans who are we're trying to develop the Master Mold Sentinel. Her husband is killed, and at the end we see her with a pink crystal, and we're wondering what that crystal is. And if it's that crystal, what's interesting is that crystal can create a singularity or a black hole. And the last time we saw a black hole or singularity created was when Zorn opened up his mask, and we saw Cardinal and we saw Rasputin or get sucked into that black hole, right? Those characters are coming back again. So maybe she's going to create a black hole, and that's how we get those characters coming back. So if now's the time, I might buy Powers of X and Powers of 10 and House of X, some of those variants again. Maybe they've dropped a little bit. So I'm looking back at those books again. I'm looking at those X titles. I'm looking at, here's another one I like. The Dodson, right? The Dodson variant, where you see the split between Betsy Braddock and Quanon, right? So they've been separated again, right? So that was a nice, Dodson, underrated, like a Hughes Light type guy. That was Mystery and Martapor 4 variant. Like, that's a tough book to find, but a key book because it splits these characters back into two. For me, this is a first reappearance, right, of both these characters. So there's different things to be chasing over there, right? The X books is one thing. I know we were also going to talk a little bit about the Spider books, right? Because
so Jimmy and I talked a little bit about the Cosmic Spider-Man today in the chat. His article, don't hate me, I don't think it's precise. I don't think he gives a shit. The Spectacular Spider-Man issue, it's like I took a picture of it. Let me see if I can figure it out.
Like that Gone Cosmic, that one where he has like the
it's well, that's the first appearance of that. What is it? It's Spectacular Spider-Man 158. I think that's where he goes cosmic. I think the key book, and for the people who have no idea what the fuck we're talking about, shall we rewind?
Yeah.
Right.
And
so different.
Right, the Spidey gun.
Yeah, that's the book. That's the book.
Right, everyone knows. Everyone should have that. Everyone should have that book because
grab them out of. They're not going to be in dollar bins, but they're going to be in $5 bins, $3 bins.
It was from 1999. It was pretty well printed.
Yeah, they're big. Snag them. Certainly don't pay $20 for them. They're going to be $25 books when Edge of Spider-Verse 2 comes out, and everybody's got a thing for Cosmic Spider-Man. Probably once or twice in the interim. But now's the time, I think, I haven't looked at eBay, to snag them for cheap if you can get them, not on eBay, but in the wild, like I said, maybe for $5, or if you get lucky out of $1 box. But anyway, so what we're talking about really is the teaser trailer. People online have gone rounds trying to figure out, I think there's about 25 different iterations of Spider-Man's symbol that appear in the teaser trailer. And so we've seen a number of characters that weren't in the first animated film that are now being at least teased for the second animated film. One is this Captain Universe Cosmic Spider-Man character. My favorite comic from my childhood, I know you like the Kitty Pryde book. Mine is the Cosmic Spider-Man Hulk book, where he's punching the Incredible Hulk to space. The McFarlane cover.
Was that part of Acts of Vengeance? Was that all from Acts of Vengeance when he got the Cosmic Spidey power? Was that
God.
When
I was a little kid, I loved that particular book. It was a McFarlane art, and it had the Incredible Hulk in, and I don't even know how old I was, like 6, 8, 10. And it was the coolest thing in the world. Cosmic Spider-Man beats up the Incredible Hulk. Watch out. So anyway, not my first comic, but like one of my favorites, maybe my favorite as a child. That I think that book is super cool. I think we'll see a lot of heat around it because of the McFarlane cover in that line. So some of the other characters that we're seeing are what? Spider-Punk.
So Spider-Punk we've seen show up. And again, I want to recommend, I've recommended this book before just as a resource, the Spider-Geddon Handbook.
Again, that you can find in dollar bins.
That you can,
because that's where I bought mine.
And basically, it's every Spider character, sort of. They have what issue they appeared. Some have bigger. Like, here's an interesting character, like right off that page, right? Like seeing Ashley Barton, who used to be known
Nice.
as Spider Bitch. If you see her on this side, that's what they called her first. Think of that.
She won a cosplay costume. No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding.
And then on the other side, there you go, Spider-Ling, right? The Annie Mae Parker character, who I've spoken about before, that great yellow cover. She's the one who actually went missing in the new in that new Spider-Verse series that's out right now, right? When we meet Spider-Zero, they're looking for Spider-Ling, who has taken on the powers of being sort of the web spinner, the Madam Web. Remember we saw a little about Madam Web? She took that Madam Web role. I know you guys talked about Leopardon, right? Like on Comic Book
Yeah,
Wars.
is that how you say it? Leopardon?
I have
Somebody's
no idea.
Someone's got.
Yeah.
Someone should really clarify that for
all
of us.
There's another. So people are chasing that first appearance, right? Because that's in that issue 12.
Where the fuck does he appear in Japan first? Is what I want to know. I want that international book. That's a neat one.
This is a variant this was for the Vault of Spiders 1. This was a variant. I think it was Marcos Martin. And there he is up top. And again, you have these books. You can find these super cheap in bins. There were so many of these ordered, but Vault of Spider 1 probably less ordered. People talked about Negative Man, right? Like, so people are going after his first appearance. Go after that Avengers. The Avengers 7 variant, right? People were after this because it was for some people the first appearance of the PlayStation Spidey, right?
And will you explain what the hell you mean that? One of the symbols is either.
So they're looking at one symbol and they're saying that symbol is connected to the Negative Man. Negative Man will be the villain in that movie. The Negative Man has actually been very prevalent in the PlayStation Spider-Man universe. I think the PlayStation Spider-Man is really interesting. I think Marvel is really building that Gamerverse. We're about to see the Gamerverse Avengers. We're going to see the Gamerverse Thor. We've seen 2 Spider-Man series now, City at War and Velocity, both taking place in the Gamerverse. That Sony PlayStation Spider-Man, that's their property, right? He's the one with the white spider on there. Think about what they could do with this character, right? Like, this is a character that could pop up in its own Gamerverse universe, almost like I spoke about Batman White Knight showing up in a whole separate Batman universe, right? Like, this is their ability, Sony's ability to develop that out. I think this book is the book people are chasing, right? Like Spider-Woman, Alpha 1, this is that variant. This is a tough one to find. Stacey Lee. Even the regular cover is a tough one to find, but because we saw sort of the symbols for maybe Silk, maybe we saw that, what are they going to do with this Jessica Drew character? We're going to see her, Spider-Gwen, this Spider-Woman Omega series. And here's the other variable, Spider-Girls, right? Like, this is a Jeff Deckel cover for Spider-Girls 1 variant. They're going to put some team of the Spider Femme group together, right? Like, why not in that Spider-Girls book? But again, I think if you're going to go after anything, that Spider-Woman 1, this is a tough. I'd say in a raw, this book is probably
it's what, a $300 book?
Yeah. I was going to say probably in that $250, $300 range. Really tough to find. Super low.
I don't have one. I gave up when I saw what the price tag was. It hasn't slipped. I say that, and it may have now. I don't know, but that's a cool book, and it's super expensive.
Yeah, and then I just be getting all like get the variants of like the Spider-Geddon, right? Like, this is a Tedesco variant. Like,
that's great, dude. That's a great cover.
Great variants all around. There against that Ashley Barton character. These are all Spider-Geddon. That's a Spider-Geddon 1. I believe that's David Nakayama, who I think is a really underrated artist. He's been doing a lot of the Spider-Verse work. Spider-Geddon, again, every variant. I think this was the Elizabeth Torque variant, and this was issue.
That's beautiful. It's great perspective.
Now, here's a really controversial one.
I have none of these books, for the record.
Some people love this. Some people hate this. And this is a guy who has a following. So this is a Joe Chiodo cover, right? And it's very sort of, it's an art forming of its time, right? So he's very much of the pinup sort of variety. Some people really like it. Some people think it's awkward looking. I love this cover when I saw it. I think it'll be a tough one to find. I think I want to say it was a 1 to 50. Maybe it's a 1 to 25 for Spider-Geddon 4. And then you had a Spider-Geddon 5, which had the Julia Carpenter Spider. And again,
these are all great books. I don't know who could hate. Why did you hate on that one? I don't get it.
I'm not paying. And again, you're not running out and buying these books when they come out, guys. You're buying them after the fact. Here's look, the Norman Osborn Spider-Geddon character, right, from Edge of Spider-Geddon 4. This is where they introduced him inside here. And it sort of said, meet the mysterious Spider-Man who changes the course of Spider-Geddon. There's a great villain, right? So he's sort of a character who takes on the character. Norman Osborn takes on the characteristics of the Spider, becomes a villain. I've spoken about this book ad infinitum, but this is where she becomes Spiderling, Annie Mae Parker. We spoke about this UK, right? Captain Britain UK. That's the Amazing Spider-Man 7 variant edition. And there he is on the front and the cover. And also his first sort of edition. I believe he's a Braddock, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think I've left those behind like an asshole too.
Penny Parker, we're going to see her coming back again, right? And I was a big advocate.
Those are dirt cheap right now.
Yeah, so you get that 5 variant. Here's the regular cover, and here's actually just for a bonus. Here's the Panini Italian cover, right? Spider Universo. So I've been buying a lot of these Panini books lately, just because I can't afford a lot of the Delato Spider-Man covers and Venom covers. So I've been getting them. They're getting them through Panini. Another one, Bombshell. So here's an interesting character. Ultimate Spider-Man 2. Bombshell has been one of the mainstay characters who crossed over from the Ultimate Universe into the Marvel Universe. She's one of the only ones who made it over. She's been a regular supporting character popping up in what we see with Miles Morales. So we could see Miles Morales, Bombshell pop up in here. You spoke about these books being dirt cheap, right?
Oh, yeah. That one's up to, hold on, not that one. Go back.
Like
that one, no, not that one. The one in your other hand.
Oh,
that one right there is now a fucking $50 book. Yeah.
Wow. So that
no, there were copies that were like free on eBay just like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago. And all of a sudden, all of a sudden now there's like one copy of the Delato variant, $50. Who first appears in that? Help me. Is that Spider-Punk?
No, that
which one is that?
No, not in 12.
Yeah, that's Spider-Punk, dude. ASM 10.
Yeah, that's right.
ASM 10.
And then we spoke about that book, right? Like Peter Porter, like that.
I like that book. I might be the only other guy in the world that likes that book.
Please.
That's the Meows Morales.
Yeah, Meows Morales. Which again, don't tell me they won't be developing those characters. Here's another one of those Renew Your Vows variants, right? Like that's another beautiful cover over there, 1/25. Here you're going to see Spider-Man Noir coming back, right? We saw he's officially.
I think he gets color, right? Isn't that the joke? He gets like Spider-Man Noir is going to be in color in the new animated iteration.
Yeah, I believe that's supposed to be. And again, there's some what a great character, right? Like great covers for this, like just very sort of.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, those Spider-Verse characters. And then who's left in the dust? Sort of Gwen, right? Like the Spider-Gwen. So
she's common, dude. I can't decide who's got a brighter future, her or Miles.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I hope they. You know what the problem is? Spider-Gwen's book to me just sort of is a stagnant book. It's just not. I'm not enjoying reading it. Like I'm checking it out. She's now in the 616. Trying to think if there's anything else. I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, I could just keep showing. I've been buying cheap Venom books too. I've been buying this Monsters of Evil, which I think we could see more of a return of the Age of Venom. I think is a very underrated character. You know, that Secret Avengers book he first appeared in, right?
Well, we heard rumors about that, and I wouldn't be. Here's the thing, right? I don't see the character playing Eddie Brock in the Sonyverse sticking around for too long. I mean. Tom Hardy is an A-list celebrity, and he's done us a service by being Venom.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's like a 6-film sort of stint for him. So call me crazy, but I think we're going to get a Flash Thompson secret Avengers-ish kind of story, minus the Avengers. But I think you'll get that Agent Venom kind of Sony film. Or, they could do a TV show. Who are the guys, the two that did the...
Lord and Miller, yeah.
Yes, Lord and Miller. They got that huge deal. It's just a matter of time before all of these sorts of things start to roll out. And I just hope that they do a fraction as good of a job as they did with the animated film, because if they do, it'll be the best Spider-Man that we've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that animated Spider-Man was just amazing.
I'm excited to see that, and I found a couple of these. I found these in dollars.
Nice.
So this is a Silver Sable and the Wild, and again, those early like Venom appearances. That last issue of Nova, what is it? The Nova 7, the Larson, where Venom's on the cover there. Like
Smart.
dig through the things where no one goes through those sort of, no one's looking for Silver Sable, even though she's gonna, supposed to have that silver and black. Who's looking for those books right now?
Yeah, her first appearance is like $10, $20.
Gorlan Parlov, who I hope is getting better. He actually had a stroke.
Oh no.
Yeah, but this is that Venom series, right?
Yeah, so, it was a great series. I loved it.
So you can find, again, it's picking up books. It's being able to have that sort of like knowing what's gonna possibly pop down the line, and knowing how to really, the most important part, organize your, get them in some sort of order that makes sense for you. So when something does pop up, you can't be digging through 10 boxes trying to find a $30 book. So you need to set up a system that's strategically smart, and it has to work for you. No one system works. Again, I told you I do my characters by alphabetically of first appearances of characters. Marvel, DC, independent books get their own boxes set up. Things that are optioned get moved into their own boxes. So when a trailer comes up, you can put them up. Just have your books ready. If you are looking just to sell and buy, that's the best advice. And again, look through what you have already and pull those books out. Your chances are you're sitting on stuff that you haven't been through if you have boxes and boxes of books. So
there goes, that's the case.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. To our faithful and friendly viewers, we really appreciate you spending this time with us. To all those who have watched this video only to give us a thumbs down, I want to thank you too. Please, more clones, more thumbs down. We need the views. Have a good evening, my friends.
Thank you, guys.
Go make some money.
Thanks.